Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And we are all about empowerment. And today I have a wonderful, wonderful guest. Her name is Andrea Spoor, and she is a certified professional empowerment coach. She's an author, and she is also the owner and director of Diva Adventures. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cheryl. It is such an honor to be here with you.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. And I just love the work that you're doing. It is absolutely incredible because you are all about empowering young women, teenagers, tweens to really love themselves. And you're all about self-image and giving them the tools that they need to get through life in a positive way.
Yes, to step into and own who they really are, which is just amazing at its core, and to learn how not to define themselves based on how other people are defining them, but to realize there's so much power in subjectivity because we all define what success is. It means something different to everybody. Beauty means something different to everybody. So helping girls understand that it's okay. And it's really wonderful when they can step into who they are confidently and define for themselves who they are and who they want to be.
So how did you get started?
Well, it's interesting. So my educational background is in psychology, but I ended up in the corporate world. When I was working for a software company, they sold to another business, and with it went my position. And so I thought, this is the opportunity for me to really step into who I want to be. I saw it as an opportunity to reinvent myself or literally write the next chapter in my life. So I had started a book years before intended for adult women, and I started writing it again. I thought, I really want to finish this book. And in the process, I was observing some young women in my life, both from friends and family, who were struggling with self-image and bullying and confidence and self-esteem and trying to measure up to what society said beauty and success would be for a teenage girl. So I was observing them go through these struggles, and something just spoke so loudly to my heart that I needed to put down the pen for the one book I had picked up again and start writing for teens. And so I did. I happened to be at someone's house one day, and their daughter came home from school while I was there and started ranting about this other girl at school. And she kept referring to this girl as a diva. And I stopped her at one point and I said, "Do you know what a diva is?" And she said, "Yes, it's a girl who's fussy and mean and manipulative, who thinks the world revolves around her." And she went on and on. And I said, "No." I said, if somebody were to call me a diva, I'd thank them. Because a diva is actually a goddess, and every girl has this inner goddess in her. And goddesses use their own brand of beauty and their own special gifts that are just theirs to inspire and lighten people around them. And so she kind of looked at me like I had just come off another planet. And she said, "I had no idea." And I said, "Yeah." So that was part of my inspiration for my book.
So did that start from that conversation that you had with that young girl?
It did.
That's so funny because you do talk about diva a lot.
Yes.
So when you said that to her and she was trying to mull it around in her head, did she change her concept of what a diva was? And did she change her concept even about that girl that she was ranting about?
She absolutely did. I think it was a really big eye-opening experience for her. And we visited a little bit and we talked about how to really address this girl that was upsetting her and what she was taking it to mean about her. We all have bad moments in a day,
Hmm.
but those bad moments are just moments. We don't have to let them ruin our whole day. And
Right.
that would be another diva trait, to rise above the small, petty stuff. I put a character in my book, and her name was Desdemona. And Desdemona is that inner critic within us that tries to make us believe that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, or we'll never fit in, or whatever have you. I help girls understand the difference between when Desdemona, that icky voice, is influencing them,
Hmm.
and when their inner diva, their inner goddess, is influencing them. And so when Desdemona is influencing them, they're experiencing a lot of drama. They might be procrastinating. They might be having a lot of relationship problems with their family and friends. So when their inner diva is influencing them, everything kind of flows. They experience minimal drama. They're really focused on solutions. They're okay with who they are, and they feel confident. They're more optimistic. They see opportunities even in struggles.
Are some of them a little bit reluctant to believe or embrace the fact that they really truly have this power within them, this inner diva? I of course like to call it the inner warrior, but it's that external influences, the things that we see and hear in the media and society and the magazines, the expectations are so unrealistic.
Yes. And so it's, I would say that the reaction is usually really good. I don't meet a whole lot of resistance when I try to explain that. I try to encourage girls, everything starts within. So your confidence starts within, your self-esteem starts within, your experiences start within. And within is where that inner diva is.
Tell us a little bit more about your Diva adventures. I mean, what does that consist of? And who are you really trying to reach?
So with Diva Adventures, that's my coaching business.
Okay.
So I offer one-on-one coaching with girls. In that process, I include the parents because it's important that the tools are reinforced at home. I don't work with them together as a group. I meet with them separately.
Hmm.
I also offer programs that I do through the school. So I have a 12-week program that I have taught through the school systems. I also offer workshops and group coaching.
As far as your book, I mean, is that part of the programs? Do you use that kind of like as a template, or is that something that people could kind of glean some of the information from the book and then, apply it themselves, or even take what they get from the book and then come to you and say, okay, these are the things that I'm struggling with?
I'm going to say all of the above. So I do
Okay.
use I do use the book for my programs. Every student, every participant, every workshop participant, every one-on-one client, they receive a copy of my book, and we do use it as a guide, but then we dig a little deeper.
And do you encourage journaling along with it as they're going through the program?
I do. I think journaling is so very powerful. I think a lot of people, I'm a big believer that it gives us answers that we otherwise wouldn't have concluded.
Do you have some of the girls work in groups or, partner up?
I do. One of my favorite stories, I taught a class at a local charter high school. And this story it's going to show you the power of really opening up our minds
Hmm.
to who people are. Because we tend to make up stories
Hmm.
based on what we've heard or seen, but the stories aren't always the truth. So it was the very first day of teaching at this high school. And I always start my programs with some sort of an activity that sets the tone for the day. And so I randomly put girls into pairs of two.
Hmm.
And I said, I'm going to give each of you 10 minutes to learn as much as you can about each other. You each get 10 minutes. And so I randomly put girls in pairs. I had never met them before. And the teacher came running up and she said, you can't put those two girls together. They are bullies. They are
Oh,
rivals. They get in fist fights. They bully online. They're horrible.
oh,
And before I could even think about it, I looked at the teacher and I said, trust me. And she said, okay. So anyway, these two girls interviewed each other and learned that they had both had this love for horses.
Wow.
They had come from very similar backgrounds as
Mm-hmm.
far as their family life goes. They had the similar struggles,
Mm-hmm.
and they both had similar interests for what they wanted to be once they graduated from high school and where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. So over the course of that 12 weeks, they became the best of friends.
Oh my goodness. That is
And,
incredible.
well, and the cool thing about that activity was that after they had interviewed each other, I had all these art supplies set up at the back of the room. And I said, you need to go create a work of art that describes the person that you interviewed. And I want you to think about what inspired you the most about them. What did they say that brought a smile to your face? What were the common threads? What were, and I had a whole list of questions, and they all created this work of art. And to see these girls, you could see in their faces that the person who interviewed them saw something that they might not have seen in themselves.
Isn't that amazing? That actually just really proves too the power of listening
Yes.
and just being able to be quiet and sit with somebody and really listen to their story and to take it in rather than have that prejudgment and then walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really curious, what was the reaction from the teacher?
the teacher was really quite surprised. She was ready for something horrible to happen.
And,
So,
and you just proved to her that you truly are a goddess with all these
oh,
goddess powers.
thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit more about bullies and bullying because it actually rather shocked me to learn how much bullying there is among young girls.
Bullying has changed so much over the years. So when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers or the internet. If you were bullied, people would spread a rumor about you, or maybe somebody would write about you on the bathroom wall.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is that a bathroom wall can be washed. And in today's world, the walls of the internet cannot.
Mm.
And so I think it's a really big differentiator, because when somebody bullies you online, it goes viral. It's not just that one person or two people who are picking on you. All of a sudden, you have people jumping in and commenting, and then it spreads, and it spreads like a disease. It spreads like a virus, and that is it's so very hard. And some kids get really obsessed with it, so they keep going back into the internet and saying, well, who's saying what about me now? Who's saying what about me now? It's hard to separate yourself from it.
Well, it's something that you can't really fight. I mean, if you have somebody who's picking on you physically or, verbally abusing you or whatever, you might come up with some tools to be able to fight back in one way or another, or protect yourself or defend yourself. But when it's something like this, it's almost like it's an invisible enemy. I mean, how do you confront somebody, or how do you fight back?
It is really, really hard to fight back. And the first step is to disengage. You take away its power when you stop engaging in it. That is the key.
There's actually a really good book, and it's a little bit off the subject, but the title is The Gift of Fear. And I read it years ago, and I still have it, and I refer a lot of people to it. It's about trying to protect yourself against violence, and it starts out actually even with people who are stalking, and what stalkers want and what they're looking for and how they start. They're just waiting for a reaction.
Yeah.
And then it starts, you give the reaction that they expected, and then they start to escalate. And that's kind of how you get sucked in. But the best way to kind of to diffuse somebody who's stalking you or trying to stalk you is to completely disengage, because that's not what they're looking for. They want a reaction.
That is exactly true. And the way somebody shows up says a lot about how they feel about themselves. And that is very true when it comes to bullies. They've had their own experiences and their own stories that have led them to that place of feeling like they have to take somebody else down to make themselves feel better.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I work with girls on a lot is character development and the power of choice. So when you gauge, you get to influence how people see you every single day. And so, for example, when you go online, if you were to ask yourself, what do I want my message to say about me when I put it out there?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there placing a message that is criticizing someone else, what does that say about you as a person and your character and your values? And how would you choose differently? Because you do get to choose that. You get to choose how you show up. And one of my favorite quotes from one of the people I studied under, one of the doctors I studied under, is every minute of every day describes who you are and gives you the opportunity to decide if that's really who you want to be. That quote sticks with me every single day. I think it's one of the most empowering things.
Mm-hmm. You have your own stories too, your personal stories of empowerment. You graduated summa cum laude or Regis University.
I did. And so, when I was talking with you earlier, we were talking about that inner voice that kind of lies to us and makes us think that we're not enough in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so after my inner voice that I dealt with for many years was I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I went through a painful divorce, a friend of mine came to me and said, what didn't you do before you were married that you wouldn't do if you were still married that you have every opportunity to do now? It was quite a question. And I said, without even thinking about it, I said, I think I would have gone to college. And he said, then go back and do it. And I said, I don't know. I'm not that good, and that little inner voice kicked up and he said, nope, go do it. So I went back. I started when I was 29. I graduated when I was 35.
Mm-hmm.
And I graduated summa cum laude, which really helped to silence that inner critic.
Mm-hmm. The inner critic who is named, what's the name again?
Desdemona, yes.
Desdemona. How did you come up with that name?
That's a funny thing. So I was going through, I actually Googled names that mean ill-fated.
Oh.
And Desdemona was one of the names that came up that means ill-fated one.
Okay. Was that in Greek mythology or?
It was.
Do you have the opposite type of character, the goddess?
The goddess. Yep. The goddess is the Diva.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So yeah, her name throughout my book is just Diva.
Okay. And I can almost see them, like it reminds me of the angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other one.
Right. And that is exactly what it is.
Well, and that's what we have to do, is that little devil on our shoulder has so much power when we listen to it.
That devil, when it's fed, has an awful lot of power over us.
And once you start feeding it, it starts growing and gaining strength.
Yes. And so learning to disengage, just like you would disengage with a bully, that little devil on your shoulder is no different than any other bully. It's your inner bully. Mm-hmm. And you have to learn to disengage with that too.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that your inner bully, because we all have that side of us, and that negative voice that keeps saying you can't, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you'll never be able to figure this out. I mean, we all have that in us, and it's like, stop it. Sometimes you have to take a few steps back and look at what you have accomplished in your life, even as a teenager or a young girl or young boy. It's those little things that we can do, those small accomplishments that really add up and give us the sense of empowerment and strength.
Absolutely. And it's the simple things, like you can wake up every morning and say, how can I make a difference today? Mm-hmm. How can I reach out to somebody I normally wouldn't reach out to that I think might like a helping hand with something? Mm-hmm. It's that choice.
But sometimes it's hard to see that, and to see that you do have choices.
It is hard to see that you do have choices. I agree. A good life comes from within, and it's not validated by everything that's outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And there is so much in our society that is external instead of internal.
Right.
And
Well,
being able to turn that off and have quiet time, which a lot of us have been able to have lately, since we're still at the end of hopefully at the end of our pandemic. But and that's been uncomfortable for a lot of people.
it has been very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Everybody's trying to find a new normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually prefer to say it's the new right now. I'm hoping that we won't go back to normal, that things are going to just get better from here. So I'm going to say it's the new right now, because things are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of kids who have lost a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The students who are graduating this year. I was out for a walk the other day, and there were signs all over this front yard that said, "Congratulations to our Regis University," or not, it was Regis High School. "Congratulations to our Regis High School graduate."
Yeah.
And there were cars lined up that had balloons coming out of them from friends. And they were just parading to each other's houses and honking the horns and cheering each other on. And I thought, that's really kind of cool. That's something very memorable. It's not what it should have been,
Mm-hmm.
but they really took it and made it something special and memorable.
Not what it should have been, but they made it what it could have been. And that in itself
Right.
is a way of finding a way around a problem or an obstacle, and finding a solution that, in some way is almost more memorable because it's not the traditional way of doing things. So I think that this has given us an opportunity to say, okay, how am I going to do this a different way?
Yes.
So what's going on in your life right now and in your business? I mean, because obviously you're doing a lot of online type of programs. So this has obviously changed for you, but you're still able to connect with your girls and to be able to offer your services and your coaching, correct?
That is correct. And I am getting ready to launch, probably mid to late summer, an online program. And so it's a general program around confidence that will break off into very specific areas. So part of my education is also in communication. So my background is in psychology and communication.
Mm-hmm.
I recently received a certification in NLP,
Mm-hmm.
which I just loved because it marries the both of them. It combines them. So I am going to be teaching these confidence programs. One of them will be a confidence and communication program. Another one will eventually be confidence through your faith. It's on the spiritual aspect of your life and how those two are intertwined.
Very nice.
So yeah, confidence and body image.
Very
Will be
nice.
another one. So I'm going to start a whole online program.
So if you can just elaborate a little bit more about NLP, just in case somebody's listening and they're not really sure what that means.
So it's neuro-linguistics programming. And so our brains are very plastic. They are malleable. They can be rewired. Your thoughts can be rewired so they work for you rather than against you. NLP, in a nutshell, is how the way you communicate, your language, your thoughts, and your feelings impact your actions and your results.
This is another thing that I like to talk about on the show is the neuroplasticity. It can work for you or it can work against you. And there's just that positive self-talk actually starts to take off and gain strength, and you're changing the neural pathways in your brain as you're doing that. And consequently, the same thing if you're doing the negative self-talk, it's changing those pathways, and what we tell ourselves is what we believe, and what we believe is what we eventually do become.
That is exactly right. We are our own self-fulfilling prophecies.
So I think that people don't realize sometimes how, even when they're denigrating themselves in jest, how your brain is really filing that information away. And it's taking it in. It's not judging it. It's like, oh, I really am fat, stupid, and ugly, and all that stuff.
That, yes, and that's a common one for youth. I think it's common for all of us, but youth really do struggle.
With this, you are teaching the girls how to set clear boundaries.
I am. Boundaries is one of the power tools that I teach, and it's so very, very critical. And boundaries actually say a lot. When you don't set them, they say a lot about your values and how you feel about yourself.
Right.
But when you start setting them and you set them appropriately, it can change everything.
So you talk a lot about boundaries, confidence, self-talk, body image.
Yep, we talk about body image. We do a lot of, power of your voice. We talk about compassion. We talk about assertiveness, the difference between assertiveness and being aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about the power of self-control, the power of intention. Of course, as a neurolinguist, we talk a lot about language and our self-talk and how we talk to others.
What a comprehensive program.
Yeah, I really love it. The girls, I've had really good response and feedback from the girls I have taught, their teachers and their parents.
Mm-hmm. How did the parents react? I'll bet they just love it.
They really do love it. It's really fun I think I'll say this the way that one of my parents said it to me. It was really fun to see their daughter step out of those chains that have been binding them, like the insecurity and the low self-esteem, and into this place of feeling empowered.
Wow, we all need a little bit more of that.
Well, and I think when you start practicing all of the power tools that I teach, you experience less drama in your life because you're able to make those confident choices that say, I'm choosing not to engage in this. And you can feel good about it. You're not doing that fearfully. You're not coming from a place of fear. You're just like, no, I'm choosing not to engage in this. This is not feeding me well.
And not going along with the crowd.
Right. Well, and the confidence to know that you always, we keep talking about choice, but part of your power and choice is you have the power to choose your friends. And so in the book, when I talk about choosing friends, I quiz them a little bit around, when you choose your friends, make sure you are choosing friends that keep you safe now, but also in your future. So choose friends that will help keep your dream alive. So keep in mind where you are right now. What do you want for your future? Where do you want to go?
Wonderful. How can people get a hold of you?
So through my website, and that's www.thatssodiva.com. They can reach me via email, which is Andrea at andreaspoor.com. And they can also reach out via phone, 303-880-8223.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap things up? Any advice, any tips, any last little pearls of wisdom that you want to share?
I think to recap how I started it, and then I'll give my final word of wisdom.
Okay.
The power of knowing that everything really is subjective, that you do get to define for yourself what success and beauty are to you. You get to define for yourself who you are and who you want to become. And that really good life, it really does come from within you, not from what's outside of you. You always have that power of choice. And that my word of wisdom is to listen to the messages that the emotions and the results in your life are giving you. When you are feeling good, everything's really in alignment for you. And when you're not feeling good, there's something out of alignment that you do have the power to shift, and allow yourself that time to sit and reflect on what's out of alignment, and then set those healthy boundaries and choose something different, and know that you are just diva amazing to your core. That's my message.
That's your message, and it's a wonderful message. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to my listeners. I always appreciate you, and would love to hear from you. So thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you, Cheryl. It was a gift to be here, a true blessing.
For all of us who are listening to you as well. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.